All right, why don't we get started? This is Charleston Square Condominium Association versus Ms. Miller. It's 23cv388826, and we are here for a bench trial. We've got Mr. Wright here on behalf of the COA, as we'll call it. Ms. Miller is representing herself. And as I understand it, this is a suit over allegedly unpaid assessments, COA assessments. There's a principal alleged of about $8,000, $1,000 interest, attorney's fees. Ms. Miller is not saying that she owes nothing. She's saying she owes less. We'll talk about that today. There's also an effort to foreclose on the lien. We'll talk about whether that needs to happen, if there's a payment plan in place or anything like that. But the way this works, Ms. Miller, have you had a trial before? No? No. Okay. The burden is on the condominium association, so they're going to go first. And I'm going to ask Mr. Wright. He may give an opening statement that sounds more formal than it is, but he may just say, Judge, this is what this is about. He's got a witness here who is probably a custodian of records who's going to say, here are the files that show that Ms. Miller hasn't paid this amount. And they're going to present their case. Any witness they call, you can ask questions of as well. Everyone gets the same opportunity. So if Mr. Wright calls the gentleman at the table to testify, if you have questions, you'll be able to ask those. Okay. When Mr. Wright is done, then he'll rest, and I'll turn to you to see if there's any evidence you want to put on. You don't have a burden. You don't have to put any evidence on at all, but I'll certainly hear from you. And as long as your evidence is admissible under the rules of evidence, then I'll accept that and consider it as well. I will say this before we really dive too deeply into this. It doesn't sound like folks are too far apart. So I don't know where things ended up breaking down, but at least my notes show that Ms. Miller said she's at about 6,500 in unpaid assessments, only 1,500 more that the association is seeking. But there's also the foreclosure piece, and there may be a long running history where the condominium association is saying enough is enough. So I will hear from Mr. Wright and his witness or witnesses, and then I just want to assure you, Ms. Miller, you'll get a chance to be heard as well. Okay? Any questions about any of that? Okay. All right. Mr. Wright, when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Judge. Dan Wright for the plaintiff in this case, Charleston Square Condominium Association. You're pretty spot on about your assessment of what the case is about unpaid condominium assessments at this point. There have been very, I guess I would say, very the beginnings of conversations, but those kind of broken down at this point. If the court would rather us try to speak beforehand, I'm more than willing to do that and speak with the defendant. If you would prefer us to do that.
Well, let me check with Ms. Miller. Ms. Miller, are you interested in talking with Mr. Wright some more about resolving this, or have you come in saying this is a fight to the finish and I'm going to show you guys what's going on?
Well, as long as, I mean, we just have to negotiate, be reasonable.
I have no reason to believe that either side is being unreasonable, other than you're so close. The fact that there's not a middle ground says to me someone might have dug his or her heels in. And I'll just, from my experience, it's usually not the association. It costs them a lot of money to have Mr. Wright here. And so I don't know what he's offered to you before, and I don't get in the middle of that. But if you think it would be helpful.
There has been no offer.
Okay. Well, I don't want to have a back and forth in front of me. If you think that it could be productive to give you all 10, 15 minutes to talk, I'll go do some work back in my office and come back out here, but I don't want to delay anything.
I'm more than willing to talk to him as long as I'm not sure on how to put what I want to say.
Okay, but why don't you hold off on saying it, because I don't want you to potentially muddy the waters if this is going to be a good conversation, because I don't mediate it. If you all don't come to an agreement, I'm here for trial and I'll come back out. And if Mr. Wright says, I'm sorry, we weren't able to sort it out, then you weren't able to sort it out. And we'll do exactly what was scheduled, which was to have a trial on the merits see what the numbers really are. Is it closer to the 8,000? Is it closer to the 6,500? And ultimately, I'm going to enter a final judgment that says you owe X something. If you owe anything, it'd be more than zero. And then we have to work through what happens with the foreclosure piece as well. I don't typically.
What does that mean, foreclosure?
So this is going to sound ominous, and I don't want you to overreact on it, but homeowners associations and condominium associations typically have the ability, it's written into the founding, the charter, the declaration and the covenant. If a member of the association, so here it would be you, if you are behind on your assessments, they can put a lien on your condominium.
I understand that.
And if you don't pay the lien, they can sell your condominium, and I'm going to make the number up. They sell it for $400,000. They collect what was in the arrearage. So they think it's 8,000 plus interest. So they'll get I'm going to call it $10,000.
Okay.
The rest of the money goes to you. It was your condo that got sold. But the problem is your condo got sold. And usually the occupant of a house or a condo doesn't want that because someone else just bought it. And then you'll get a notice of eviction because, let's say, DNA investors buy it. They're going to say, Ms. Miller, it's not your place anymore. It's our place, so you need to get out. You'll have some money. Now, there may have been a mortgage on it and whatnot, and that gets paid off with the proceeds, but whatever's excess, typically you'd get that, but you wouldn't have a place to live anymore. That's sort of the nuclear option, but it is a right that the association has if you persist in not paying.
Okay.
So that's sort of
What's the time frame on something like?
So I'm not the subject matter expert. I just know that it can happen. It's not 1 minute. So it wouldn't be Mr. Wright's on the courthouse steps. There has to be notice and things are published, and he could answer that question much better than I could.
Okay.
But it's not immediate, but it is certainly relief to which they are entitled if they get a judgment of more than $0, because then they'll have that lien. And then, but the policy behind that is not, let's throw women out on the street. It's that gets your attention. Uh-oh, I better pay this because I don't want to lose my condo.
It already had my attention a while ago.
Okay.
But, there just didn't seem to be anywhere to talk.
Okay. Well, here's courtroom 8D, which is your place to talk. I'm going to step away unless there's something you want to add, Mr. Wright.
I'm perfectly willing to talk to her, explain that, and
Good.
I'd love for us to be able to work something out that'd be mutually beneficial at this point.
Great. I'm going to step away. Deputy Gordon will come get me if it's a quick conversation, either because it goes well or right away people are yelling at each other. We're done. It's not about yelling. It's about working it out. Otherwise, I'll just check with him in about 15 minutes. And if you tell me, hey, actually give us 5 more minutes and we'll be all done, that's much more efficient for everyone. And it's a handshake deal. And actually we'll get your signature on it before you go. And then we'll probably formalize it in a written settlement agreement that I would make part of the record. But I want to be real clear. I'm applying 0 pressure. If you don't want to talk with Mr. Wright, you don't need to do that. I'm hearing you open to it. So you guys will start to have a conversation. Anytime it needs to end, it ends. Deputy Gordon will come get me, but I'll check on you all probably in about 15 minutes. And if you need more time, I got other stuff to do. Okay?
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Stay seated. It's okay. Deputy Gordon tells me that they were fruitful discussions.
Yes, Your Honor, I'm pleased to report that we have come to an agreement. Unfortunately, the document is not the most beautiful document in the world, but if the court would like to review this.
It's about substance and not beauty. I would like to take a look at it, not to approve or reject it, but just to understand it. And then
Certainly, Your Honor.
we'll get on the record, if you will, everyone's agreement. Where is Kingsport Drive? What's that near?
That's in Sandy Springs. It's over by Prado Shopping Center.
Okay, so up Roswell and a little off.
You just take Roswell, like well, it depends on where you are, but from here, you just shoot up Roswell. And before you get to the main highway, 285,
Yep.
where the new exits and everything,
Yeah.
you just make a turn. Prado's right there where Target, like the gym.
Yep.
There's a bunch of restaurants and Target's the main.
Right, no, I know where that Target is. So where's Kingsport? Is it a side street of Roswell?
Well, basically you turn down Placid, then you make a turn and right there's Kingsport. It's a short road.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only maybe quarter mile, maybe a quarter mile, maybe.
You guys did good math.
Oh. Every so often one slips through and you got to get that FIFO. It's like, oops.
Yeah.
I mean, it's usually like 2 cents or something ridiculous. So it's,
The second signature is you?
Yes, sir.
just
Okay.
as the property, as a.
Got it.
representative of the board.
Okay. All right. So Ms. Miller, what I understand you have agreed to here is that the total amount you will pay over time is $11,615.48.
Yes,
And that is payable in monthly installments
yes,
of $968
yes,
that you will pay on or before the 25th of each month, starting next month.
yes.
So you got a little time to gear up.
Yeah.
But that payment, the $968, is not inclusive of your monthly association fee.
Correct.
Okay, so I don't know when that's due each month, but in September, which starts in a few days, you'll get $330
Mhm.
to the association. Later that same month, you get $968. That $968 occurs every month until it is all paid off. The $330 goes on in perpetuity as long as you're living there.
Mhm.
That's your understanding?
Yes,
Okay, and Mr. Wright, that's what you think you've agreed to on behalf of your client?
Correct, Your Honor.
All right. And how, I want to avoid, we're getting together again in October because the check didn't get to where it's supposed to be. What's your understanding, Ms. Miller, of how you make those payments? Do you hand a check to the
well, Mr.
association manager? Do you email it? Do you?
Mr. Wright gave me his card. They have a portal, so I can go into the portal to pay everything there.
And everything is both your monthly assessment?
Both my monthly assessment and what I owe.
Okay, and that portal is a Lazega Johansson portal or it is a Charleston Square portal?
It is our portal, Your Honor, and what the reason for that is we keep up with the settlement while it's in legal, so to speak.
Mhm.
And then we've spoken with Ms. Miller and let her know that once that settlement's paid off, then she'll go back to paying the association.
And she'll get notice that we're going to figure out that date, but let's say that it was in October of 2026 that she's paid everything off. She'll be alerted, don't go through the Lazega Johansson portal anymore. You got to, whatever you do to pay regularly to the association. You do that.
Correct.
Your firm is responsible and accepting responsibility for getting that 330 that comes into your account over to the condo association. So they're not saying, look, she's fallen behind again.
Yes, Your Honor. We've spoken about that. There'll be no late fees and things like that. We understand there's going to be basically, two pieces of the payment due to some payment restrictions that she has as far as when she gets her benefits checked.
Got
and
it.
things like that. So we are both, the association and Ms. Miller, are aware of how that's working, and we both in agreement to accept the payments that way.
Okay. What I will do, assuming there aren't other questions, is get the consent judgment entered, and then I will stay the case. And we've got a stock order that stays it until everything's been paid off. Because if you fall, that wasn't the plan. You were thinking just close it out.
Typically, we were just, the way that the document reads, that you enter a judgment for the full amount, and then we accept the amounts, and we will not garnish, we won't foreclose, we won't do any of those things unless she were to default.
Okay.
But just that way, typically, to be honest with you, we've had so many judges prefer the consent judgment route as opposed to a consent order, so they don't have to enter
Good.
or keep the case
Me
going.
too. And this says consent judgment, so I guess I should have read the title. So when I enter this will close the case. It will continue to govern your obligations, Ms. Miller.
Right.
Even though the case is closed, that doesn't mean, this is what governs things now, this agreement. You'll want to get a copy of it.
Yes.
You'll want to get a copy after it's been filed, because that's the official copy. Have you been able to e-file so far?
Yeah.
I'm looking in the docket here.
Yeah,
You did.
I did one or two.
Okay, so then you should get a notice when this is filed in there. You'll get an email that says, hey, there's a new document.
Right.
Click on that. There's your PDF, print that out, and that's your copy of the consent judgment. So you've got the terms, general reminder about when to pay and how much, but that's how you'll get your copy. If for some reason that email doesn't work or you're not getting it, reach out to my staff attorney and she will send you a file stamped copy of this. It'll get entered today.
Yeah, Ms. Giles?
Ms. Niles.
Niles,
Yep.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. She will get you the file stamp copy if the e-filing system doesn't work. It should. If you have received notices before when something's being filed, either from my chambers or by Mr. Wright, you'll get another one of those, and it's this magic document.
Right.
Okay. All right, Mr. Wright, anything else on behalf of your client?
That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Miller, anything else?
No, I think we got everything.
Okay, who did you bring with you?
My son.
All right. Well, it's good to have company for something like this. I appreciate you all having a fruitful discussion. That makes it simpler for everyone. I'll sign this and get it entered today. You guys will be doing what you need to do.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Good luck, Ms. Miller.
Thank you. I know.
Yes.
Okay.
That's going in there.
Here's my purse.
Yeah.
Oh, in there.
All right, if you guys need anything, you have my information. Just give me a
Thank
shout.
you. Yeah, I'm
Absolutely
gonna-
pleasure to meet you.
What I'll do is I'll send you an email, just to confirm that
Sure.
it's the correct email. So
I'll
thank
keep
you
an eye
so
out for you,
much.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys have a good holiday.
You as well, thank you.
I just realized, so my first one right there, 2008.